Hi, my name is Dr. Rae Banigan. I'm a speech and language pathologist, and I have a private practice in the town of Palmer. I want to share a little bit of my personal history because I am very passionate about the information that I'm sharing to empower parents to enrich their baby's development. Because of my own experience. I was born a poor girl, very poor girl in New York City of uneducated parents. And I have a significant learning disability that was never diagnosed. So I grew up, and everything I've ever done in life has been a significant challenge. And I just thought I was dumb. But my mom, who had also been a survivor of an abusive father and the depression and poverty, etc., I was blessed with her because she convinced me I was perfect just the way that I was, and that if life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. And the other is you can do anything you want if you're willing to work hard enough to do it. So, needless to say, yes, I'm Dr. Rae Banigan after lots of work. But everything in life was a challenge. I started out as an English teacher and was in the 7th grade and was overwhelmed that I had students who couldn't read in the 7th grade. So I said, no, I need more information here if I'm going to actually help people not have to go through what I went through. And I went back to school, and my research and work has been with special needs students as a speech and language pathologist. And in all of my work initially was in developing a model of looking at the brain and how it functions from the moment we hear something or see something, perceive it, to discriminating what it is, to the scanning process where we just pull out and say, oh yeah, I've heard that, to the working memory, and how we store information so that I could, when working with someone who had a challenge in learning, I could help them say, okay, this is your strength, this is your weakness, this is your disability. This is what we have to do. You got to find the way to do it. So that they didn't feel dumb like I felt. And in doing that, I developed this model of every process from hearing to talking, listening, writing, etc. So then once I became a parent, which of course was very exciting, my most exciting experience, because obviously I love children and babies, but was also the most challenging experience of my life. I began to redirect my research and work and looking at babies and babies' development, how babies' brains develop, and how parents naturally communicate with babies so that we could look if there's a way of tweaking it to help them to be more effective. Because the greatest cause of frustration, both in babies and parents, is the fact that a baby can't tell you what they want or need, other than crying and then later tantruming when they're frustrated, which is very frustrating for parents and baby. So for the past 38 years, my research and work has focused on brain development, parents' natural communication, and strategies that can help parents be more effective in their communication with their babies, to develop simple approaches that can empower parents. And I focused on sharing information as I researched it and found it. I would share it. I also developed a telephone screening program where I could screen babies to give information to parents so that they could direct the work that they were doing. And basically I have found that parents, by empowering parents, it is amazing how babies can develop the attention, the sound processing, the language development, as well as listening, working memory skills, talking and learning before they're 22 months of age. It's very exciting. I appreciate this great opportunity that Massachusetts Public Access Television has given me to share my newest and my most exciting information through this program. Babies are born with 3 million extra brain cells that are floating around their brain. They're not directed like most of our brain cells are directed. Okay, that's a motor cell, or that's a sensory cell, whatever. But they're not directed, but they can be stimulated to be used for whatever the baby's brain needs to use them for learning. So the learning of sounds, syllables, word forms, language, attention, auditory memory is actually best achieved in babies under 12 months of age, because the babies are naturally stimulated and ready to learn what they need to learn in sounds and language and motor, etc. And they have parents who love them desperately and want to help them and do everything that's humanly possible to help them, and get really excited when they do something well. So that situation is the perfect situation for taking those extra brain cells and directing them to do what the baby needs. By 22 months of age, babies have a period of integration. First of all, babies' brains are like this camera here. They see everything, they take everything in, and they put it in an experience box in their brain. So if you happen to make sound that sounds like something in the box, they pull it out and they understand you. But the problem with those boxes is we end up with trillions, zillions even in our brain. So by 9 months of age, they realize that's not a very efficient way of storing language information. So what they start to do is they start to develop categorization, basic categorization skills. Things are either living or non-living. And then we develop subcategories. Anything with wheels that transports either people or things are vehicles. But if they have wheels on them and they don't transport, like a vacuum cleaner, they're not a vehicle. And of course, once the baby needs to search, they just go vehicles, zoop, car. Or vehicles, work vehicles, zoop, truck. Okay, so it makes the processing much faster and easier, both storing information and retrieving information. So, but by 22 months of age, babies have what we call this period of integration, where all of the sound and language and all the initial development that they have, they integrate it into the processes that they think they're going to need. Before that, you can teach a baby anything. After that, it may take 3 to 5 years, or for some things like the auditory working memory, if they don't have it before that, they will never develop it, unless they go to therapy for many years. So my goal is to simplify the process so that nobody has to go through what I did, and to learn for parents, to empower parents with ways to communicate so that they are enriching their baby's development in this attention, processing of sound, language, as well as listening, memory, skills, talking, and learning. And I truly appreciate M-PACT's providing this opportunity for me to share this information. So let's look at the sound processing. When babies are in the utero, when babies are in utero in their mom's belly, they do process sound, because we know within 24 hours babies suck differently for music they've heard in utero versus music they've never heard. So we know they develop pitch and inflection. But the babies, the listening is just for the ears, but the talking component, the primary function for these organs of our mouth and our larynx are for breathing and for eating. So they have to learn to use these mechanisms for communication. And so initially, the only communication is crying. And then they growl, and then by 4 to 6 months, they in fact learn to start controlling the vocal mechanism, the mouth and the larynx, so they can hold a sound and produce it, or they can make different sounds within their mouths in babbling, and they can make different vowel sounds, e, o, whatever, and emerging consonant sounds. And babies also need to develop that flexibility, because when we talk, our tongues do millions of movements per second in order to make the sounds that we need. So I started working and developing strategies, the earliest that we can stimulate the strategy for something other than crying and tantrums to get what you want or need. So the strategy that I tried was basically saying for them, if the baby is, hungry, they'll start to cry. And mom walks up and says, "Oh, you want mom?" And then she picks up the baby, which means she's just created the stimulus response of, if I want something, I cry. So we tried to alter that a little bit, where you come up to the baby, "Oh, you want ma?" And then you get about a foot away, because that's the best visual field for babies, and you look and then you say, "Ah?" And remember, babies understand pitch from birth because they learn turn-taking, etc., at that early, very early age, first visually and then language. So when they hear that pitch, they try to imitate it and try to say, "Ah." So initially, you don't care what sound comes out of their mouth. It's whatever it is. Say, "Yeah, ah, ma," and you pick up the baby. So that you've just replaced the crying. Crying gets her here, but if I want her to pick me up or feed me, I say, "Ah." And once the baby will imitate "ah" and actually get "ah," then you move to the next form, which would be "ma." So when the baby spontaneously says "ah" to get what they want, you then would say, "Ma," and eventually then you go to "ma," and then to "mommy," where in fact you're helping the baby develop this oral motor structure in order to be able to produce speech versus crying, which is very good. Okay. The most important, so there's no right or wrong in stimulating a baby. It's what works. If it works, you do it. If it doesn't work, you don't do it. You try to tweak and do something else. So there is no right or wrong. So always better to try. But first thing is, you need to know your baby's style of learning, because babies are born with an innate style of how their brains learn best. They're born that way. So what you need to do is to observe and to know. Because babies hyper-focus on whatever interests them. And the challenge is they don't have a clue what they need to learn. But if you know your baby's style, then you can, and what your baby's ready to learn, you can tweak what you say and how you say it to make it much, 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 much easier for the baby to learn. Saves a lot of frustration for both the baby and for you. So the first thing you want to do is observe your baby to determine what the style is. And there are two basic styles. Some babies are all one style or the other, and some get a combination of styles. The first is the social baby, who is totally focused on the interaction. They're directed toward listening, focused on this interaction with people. They're focused on developing the social interaction, attachment, communication. I joke, these babies come out of the womb, are born, and when they start crying, they're trying to tell you about the experience that they had. And everything else that they do, they want to tell you. They'll pick up an object and "Ma, look at this," and where you'll tell them what it is. Then you have the opposite style baby. You're very active explorer, or what I call the manipulator baby, who is totally focused, 100% focused on moving, touching, and looking and exploring, which is wonderful. We need those kind of people because they're going to be our surgeons, our engineers, our mechanics, our construction workers, our artists, our musicians. So we need those people in the world. However, because they're so totally focused, they naturally, even though the parent may show them this brightly colored, oh, bear, all they'll see is the red, and they will tune out the word that I said. So therefore, they don't develop those listening skills that they need for later for following directions, talking, reading, and writing, etc. We've seen a significant increase in attention deficit disorder and attention hyperactivity disorder diagnoses. And for me, every child or adult that I've worked with that diagnosis, they are all the visual active style learners. And I'm biased about technology because I'm a moron when it comes to technology. I'm a communication person. But unfortunately, with the advance in technology, which in one way is excellent for sharing information, it has also brought about a very negative effect on the development of listening, attachment, communication, and social development. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends that no baby under the age of 26 months should ever look at a screen until they're using three-word combinations, because when they are using three-word combinations, they in fact have developed all of those earlier processes of attention, perception, discrimination, scanning, working memory. They've developed all of those processes. So now they can focus in on the visual, and they'll love it. And they've actually done studies on the amount of time that a child under 5 views a screen over the course of a day. And for every 30 minutes that a child under 5 is viewing a screen, a handheld screen, that child demonstrates a 6-month delay in talking, listening, and learning. So if they're looking at a screen for an hour a day, they're going to show a year's delay. And for those that are really focused, they don't ever develop those skills, which is why we get the diagnosis of attention deficit disorder, etc. Parents need to put their phones down and direct their attention to their babies. Because it is that direct face-to-face contact between the parent and the baby that develops critical communication, critical learning, develops the baby's self-esteem, develops social skills, the turn-taking, the interaction, when to listen, when to talk, attachment skills. It is that human interaction that is so critical to developing those skills. And another study that was very recently done obviously done because we're seeing so much more violence where children aren't safe going to school because people go in with guns and blow up. But it's not the gun, it's the person. And what they did is they went and they did testing on juveniles who were in juvenile home, facilities because they had gotten into trouble either with the law or emotional, whatever. And 100% of those teens in those facilities did not develop the auditory working memories. Okay, so needless to say, and plus toy and tech companies spend millions on convincing you that the products that they provide are great for your baby's development or your child's development, when non-biased research doesn't support that. So that's why I'm here. So for parents, the eye contact, touch, talk, listening, sharing experiences, sharing play, sharing interaction, provide values for your baby and for long-term life. I want to provide some research information that I have. One of the volunteer programs that I've done, and for 40 years I've provided free workshops, free telephone screenings, etc. Because, needless to say, that's why I told you about my own history. Because I'll do anything that I can to prevent any other human being from having to have the challenges that I had. But one of the programs is a volunteer program that I have at Trinity Episcopal Church in Ware, Massachusetts, where we have a diaper program for people who come to get free food, and we give away free diapers. And what I started doing is just doing the simple screening that I developed so that a parent knows, one, what the baby's ready to develop, what the baby's style is, and then what approach might work best for their baby. And I spend maybe 5 minutes with them the first time they come in doing the screening, and then I give them a goal. Well, these parents who have faced more challenges than most people have faced in their lives, 97% of those goals were achieved when they came back, meaning they would say, yeah, the baby did this. Or they'd come back to me and say, no, I tried this and that didn't work, but this is what the baby did, and we tweak it and change it to make the goal more effective. Because I said, there's no right or wrong, it's what works. And what I found with those babies, that I had minimal contact with the parent or the babies. Of those, I've screened about 300 babies. 114 of those babies, their parents had diagnosed disabilities in ADD, ADHD, or learning disabilities. And of those babies that had genetically predetermined disabilities, 94.7% of those babies were in the normal range by 22 months of age. Blew me away with excitement. Because basically what that is saying is yes, and what I also saw was the empowerment of the parents. By facing challenges, unless you have someone like I had my mom who just said, yes, you're perfect the way you are. So when I got a D, did you try your hardest? Yes. Great, you did great. And if you failed, well, did you try your hardest? Yes. Well, that's okay, we'll get it next time. We'll try it a different way. Okay. So by empowering parents, these parents who were empowered through this helping of their babies, they got jobs. One woman started her own business because she was very creative. Another dad started a construction company, and others went to work. Others went to school, because all of a sudden they saw themselves in that empowered, like, this is me. I never knew that part of me. Now I know that part of me. One mom who had a baby had twins, and one of them was in the autism spectrum, has now started a support group for parents of children in the autism spectrum. They'll be having their first meeting in May, but it's early May, so it would be June. If you're at all interested in going, so that you have a support group where you can talk about the things that you do and help each other. Sometimes I'll be there, sometimes I won't be there, but all you need to do is call Trinity Episcopal Church in Ware, Massachusetts. I don't have the number, just look it up, and just leave a message with your name and number, and we'll call you back so that you can join the group. But that's how exciting these very simple strategies are. Plus, because of this phenomenal experience that I had in sharing with these expert parents, these parents who, just showed me like, whoa, I didn't realize it was that easy. I revamped my own website, www.talkingwithchildren.com, where all the information you'll need about children's development from infancy up through 7 years of age is there, as well as my program, Talking is Sharing, which describes and demonstrates ways that parents can talk to their babies to make it easier. You kind of bypass the baby and go right to their brain, which is excellent, because you know what, when babies know what they want to do. So parents using babies' understanding, how to talk to the babies. And it's important that they realize you have natural strategies, but your natural strategy is to respond to the baby's level of understanding. So if you say, oh, you want to eat, and the baby gets all excited, you say, yeah, the baby knows that's what they want me to do. But what I have found with those active manipulator type of babies, that they respond and understand because all they hear is, ooh, ah, ah, ee, and they put it in the getting food in there, the experience of getting food in their mouth, so therefore they hear, ooh, ah, ah, ee. But the problem is they're not developing the sound processes, the perception, the identification of the consonant sounds, etc., the words, none of that is coming in. So if a parent redirects to the baby's level of production, so if your baby's crying, you need to just give the baby a vowel, because that comes next from the crying part. So instead of picking up your cues for the baby's understanding, pick up your cues on how to talk to your baby by the baby's level of production. So yes, you talk normally. Oh, do you want to eat? Or you want ma? And then you just say, ah, with the rising intonation, and then give them some food. Then all of a sudden they've linked that stimulus response learning from ah, food, and you're home free. Plus, you're teaching those listening skills as well. So empowering parents to enrich their baby's development is what I do. The first thing is you want to match your models of what you choose to say by what the baby is able to say. You want to target your words, and the Talking is Sharing program that's on my website and also on YouTube tells you how to say words to target those sounds and how to target them so that, again, you bypass the baby and go directly to the brain. So babies learn to say the b, and d from birth to 18 months of age. And then between 12 and 2 years of age, they do the p, n, w, and h. And from 2 to 4, they get in the k, t, the k, g, t, and y sounds. You may at around 4 months hear the k when they're on their back because the tongue goes back, so you get a ku sound. But once they're upright, you don't get it till after 2 usually. But you want to pick the words you say that represent the sounds. So again, you have this manipulator baby who loves, they're building and then we bang it and crash. And okay, you don't want to say crash. They're not going to say crash till they're 7 years of age. So when you knock it down, you say boom. And the boom with a rising intonation, boom. The baby then comes up with maybe ooh or and then comes up with boom. And so you've taught your baby through just modeling wee. So you want to listen to the baby's form. You say you want to eat because you want them to hear the words. And then you'd say e and wait for the baby to imitate. And then once they imitate, then you listen for when they say it spontaneously and run. Excuse me. And babies develop the vowel sounds and the ability to say words. They start with vowels, and then they go to consonant vowels. So it would be ah, and then ma, and then or not but up. And again, if you're going to say up and it's a little one, do ub. They'll change it to up very quickly because that's a natural process that they have. That once they learn to say a sound, they'll change all the sounds in any words they hear that have that sound. And then duplicating mama and changing to mommy, and then, or changing consonants, gamma, for, grandma, and then adding more syllables. Babies babble. They start about 4 months because it feels good. It feels good in their mouth. So they do it just because it feels good. They're not concentrating on the sounds that they're going to use the sounds for anything else. So when you're playing with your baby and before 4 months of age, and they do, dama, and they're playing. You just do dama da. You add a syllable to help develop that oral motor flexibility that they need. And the most important thing that I will say to you is the power of communication. I've worked with probably 100,000 babies over my course of my career, and I've only had to teach the word no to one of them. Don't ever use that word, because it becomes a power word. And that's where I have developed these processes from, is the fact that once you give them the power, whether it's e, whatever it is, or ma, that becomes the power word to get what they want. And I actually had a little boy in the autism spectrum who was referred to my practice at 21 months of age. He had been diagnosed at 12 months of age, but hadn't made very much progress in other services. And I saw he was tantruming all the time. He was throwing things, hitting. He had no play skills, no interaction skills, and very few communication skills, and had no idea that he could control his environment any way other than screaming and throwing things. So we were playing, and I watched him, and I saw his face again. And so we were building something, and I saw his face that I could tell he didn't want me to do that. So I pointed to him, and I said, "Me? E?" And I backed off. And in like 1 second, he realized E will work to get somebody else to do something you want them to do. And so we tried it a lot of other times in that session. And then when Mom went home, I said, anytime he wants something, you say E with a rising intonation and give it to him to develop that power. And she came back a week later and said, I have a different child. He's not tantruming. He's vocalizing all the time. And whenever he wants something, he says, me. I said, okay, this is where we're going. We're going to continue with this because we found the way to work for this child. And I said, well, how did you do it? She said, well, I did it all the time, but the time that got the me, I was taking a shower, and he was outside. He wanted to come into the shower. And so usually he'd start banging and throwing things and hitting his head, etc. And all of a sudden he started yelling, "Ee!" So of course I jumped out of the shower, put a towel on, ran outside, got him, brought him in, put him in the shower. And she said after that, he used me anytime he wanted something. It was very exciting. So that power of communication. And parents naturally, we label things that we see. We're always trying to share the labels, the names of things with babies. But if you really want to get the production part, the baby to say it, wait until it's something the baby really wants, and then you got it. And on the bottom of this chart, you'll see you can, for the information you need to see where your baby is, whether your baby is a social baby or a manipulator baby, if you need more guidance, is my website, talkingwithchildren.com. And my email is Dr. Rae Banigan at talkingwithchildren.com. So by tuning into the consonant sounds that your baby's capable of saying and the form that your baby is saying, you are empowering yourself and your baby with communication. I want to thank Massachusetts Public Access Television because they have been tremendously supportive over the last 40 years, probably 38 years, of sharing information through these programs. This is the 4th program that I've done with them, but they have also been very helpful. On my website is Talking is Sharing that describes strategies that you can tune the baby in to bypass that baby and get to the brain. But I've also done others. I've done Talking with Children, Reading with Infants and Toddlers, and Sharing the Joy of Reading with Preschoolers. And if you go to YouTube and you look for M-PACT TV links, all of these programs are available to you to view anytime that you want. If you have found this information helpful, which I hope you have, any donation that would be greatly appreciated by the needy families in Ware, Massachusetts. So if you would like to send a donation, please send your donation to Trinity Episcopal Church Diaper Mission, P.O. Box 447, Ware, Massachusetts 01082. And I've appreciated the ability to share this, the opportunity to share this information with you. And again, on my website, www.talkingwithchildren, all the information you need from birth to 7 years of age of development to identify what your baby's ready to develop, and looking at your baby's style of development and strategies to how to help them is on there. And there's also the opportunity you can email me if you want a screening, and I will send the screening to you. Or you can talk to me. There's a button that you can click on to set up an appointment where I can call you. It's been a great pleasure sharing, and I hope you enjoy the joy of being empowered, empowering yourself and your baby in communication. Thank you.